Greetings, fourth graders. I hope you're having a great day. What we're doing now is we are preparing our bags to make a casing for our drawstring. You can see that your stitches are up the side, and what we're doing here is preparing our bag for sewing. If you have pins, that is going to be very helpful. You really only need one or two pins. I'm going to show you how to do it with one. But what you're going to do is fold in the corners. We have some of our threads there. We'll clean that all up at the end. But we're going to fold in our corners and then fold down the top part about a half an inch. And then we're going to do one more fold, another half an inch. And you can take a minute. If you have a parent that is willing to help you iron this, that is wonderful. And if you are doing this on your own, I recommend that you have a book handy or something small to weigh down your fabric while you're pinning it. And you're going to tuck your hand under and pin your fabric. There. You can take a minute, and it's called, you can finger press, which is where your fingers are working as an iron. And the heat from your hand will press down your fabric. Of course, this works much faster with a hot iron, but you can really do this work with your fingers. Okay, so our one side is ready. Now we're going to continue by making a very special stitch, the invisible hem stitch, and I'm going to put that in our next video. But if your fabric is rolling up, you can use another pin to hold that down. Okay, and this is how it should look. Okay, so you have your work all pinned up. What I recommend that you have for this next section is a sheet of cardboard, and you can put the cardboard underneath where you are sewing. I highly recommend this because it is very disappointing to get all the way across and realize that you have accidentally sewn your two sides together. And the cardboard just prevents that from happening. What we're going to do first is we're going to make 3 stitches in one spot, and we are going to start at the precise spot where our roll is meeting the corner that has been folded down. And in this spot, we are going to sew 1, 2, 3 layers together. Starting from the back, you will put your needle through all 3 layers. And leave a sizable tail. You can trim that later. And now you're going to do 3 stitches in one spot. You are starting on the left side of your work. So 1, 2, and I know the 3 layers is a lot, so you might have to push hard to get it through, but you'll do it. And 3. Okay. Now we're ready to begin. This part takes a little bit of thinking, but once you get the pattern, it's going to be a very useful stitch to know. Okay, again, I want to repeat that this stitch moves from the left to the right, as if you were writing. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to pick up If you can see the tiny threads in your fabric, you're going to pick up just 1 or 2 of those threads. Really, the tiniest amount that you can. Your stitch goes down and up. I'm using a contrasting thread, but if you're doing these stitches correctly, you should not be able to see your stitches on the other side, and I'll show you when we're done. And then you're going to pick up a stitch here. And then come back and find again no more than 2 or 3 threads from your woven fabric. You're going to pick up, go down and up here. And on this stitch, you are not seeing your needle on the other side. You are only going through the top roll like that. Then you are attaching the rolled fabric to the outside of your fabric in the next part of the stitch, where you're going through just the tiniest amount of fabric. 2 or 3 threads from that. Again, this is called the invisible hem stitch because when you get to the end, you cannot see. This is contrasting thread. It's very bright. You can see that the thread on this side. But when we flip it over, because you're only going through a few pieces of thread in the fabric, you can see that this fabric consists of thread-like material woven together. So when we come all the way across, you will not be able to see this on the other side. Okay, here we are at the end. We've worked all the way from the left to the right, and we're about to sew the end of our casing together, and it's the same as we did at the beginning of the row. And at the end, you will sew all 3 layers together. You're going to go to the other side of the fabric, and if you were using white or blue thread, or even any thread that isn't as contrasting as bright yellow, you will not see, these stitches will not stand out on the other side. And this stitch here, the invisible hem stitch, this is a wonderful stitch if you ever need to hem up pants or bottom of a shirt that is too long. This is the stitch that you would use to so that you wouldn't see your stitches on the other side. And you can see a few of them you can see with the contrasting color, but again, if these stitches were in a lighter color, or a color that closely matches the blue, you wouldn't see them. And so you can see how there are a few stitches where I gathered more than 2 fibers, but I wanted you to see, even if it's a little tiny stitch, when you see the whole bag, or if this were a garment, you would really, that would just be a tiny speckle. You would barely see that stitch. And that's how it's going to look across. And now you're going to do the same thing on the other side. And I'm going to run through that one more time. I know you can rewatch the video, but I'm just going to show you again. To fold in the corners. And then you fold in the top. And it's okay if this takes you a few times, because as you can see, all of my fingers are working when I'm doing this folding. I'm folding over the right and left side. And I am, with my tall finger and pinky finger, I'm holding the fabric down. Sliding my fingers out of the way. And there. I'm going to roll those edges down. But this is how it's going to look, tidy, and you can keep a book or something heavy handy to just train that fabric. This is where it's going to be. And you can use a small box or something heavy. Like I said, a little book will do, just to hold that fabric down. And then you can sew up the other side with the invisible hem stitch.